7:05 p.m. And on the committee are myself, Councilor Holmes, Councilor Jackson. And so tonight I have, from the docket of March 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to petition the general court to enact special legislation relative to polling places in the city of Attleboro. The special legislation is necessary as the proposed relocations would be to non-adjacent polling places and may be needed for the special elections after April 3rd, 2018 as follows. An act relative to polling places in the city of Attleboro, be it enacted by the State and House of Representatives in the General Court assembled and by authority of the same as follows. Section 1, notwithstanding Section 24 of Chapter 54 of the General Laws or any other general or special law to the contrary, the Board of Election Commissioners in the city of Attleboro shall designate the polling place for each voting precinct in the city of Attleboro and shall cause each polling place to be suitably fitted up and prepared. The Board of Election Commissioners shall locate the polling place in a public, orderly, and convenient portion of the precinct, provided, however, that if the Board of Election Commissioners determines that the public convenience would be better served, it may designate a polling place in an adjacent or non-adjacent precinct of the city. Section 2, this act shall take effect upon its passage.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, after that. So, and we did have a memo from the elections office, Cheryl Perry, and hopefully I don't have to read the letter. Everybody take a look at it. Good. But I do have a guest here tonight to come up and speak to us about the election. So, George Thatcher, if you would please come to the podium and say your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. George Spatcher, Chairman of the Board of Election Commissioners here in the city. And just to give a brief chronology as to what brings us here tonight, because I know some of you may be more familiar with this process than others, and some of you are brand new here. Up until September of 2015, and for many years, Ward 1 voted at the Knights of Columbus on Highland Avenue, way down in South Attleboro, almost into Cumberland, and that worked fine for many years. Although during Bill Crowley's era, there were concerns that the Knights might not be continuing that function hall. However, even after he and Marianne thoroughly searched South Attleboro for alternatives, which they didn't find at the time, things seemed to settle down at the Knights Hall, and we continued for many years to come. September of 2015, we learned they were closing the function hall, and of course it has become the, I think it's the Shannon O'Brien Dance Studio. So we were no longer able to vote there. Now that was September of 2015. That was a municipal election year. I believe we did not have a preliminary that year, although we'd scheduled one, but we had to scramble a little bit to be ready for November. And we ended up at the smaller gym at Coelho School with the cooperation of the school administration, and we made it work for one election. In December of 2015, we went back to the administration and said, can we continue? And the word was the school committee really didn't like the idea of using it as a polling place with school in session. Conflicts of security and parking and traffic and buses and so forth. And we could see this was going to be a lengthy process with no certain outcome, so we looked further. We researched South Attleboro, and the one alternative we came up with as a possibility was the community room at the parish center of St. Teresa's Church. Father Gallant was very gracious to us then and has been. And so we were there for, you see, the presidential primary was coming up in March of that year, so we had to be situated. And then, of course, later that year, we had the state primary in September, and then the presidential election in November. So that worked through 2016. 2017, we were okay down there as well, and had 3 elections. We had we had the special Senate election last year and the municipal elections. Now, in January of this year, when the schedule became known that we were going to have a couple of special elections, March, which is over, and April coming right up, as well as the fall schedule, and who knows what in between, Father Gallant called me, and he said, he said, this has just gotten to be too much. He said, we never anticipated all this activity. It's very disruptive. Because you see, you must understand, in that parish center building, most of it is leased by the For Pete's Sake preschool, which is an independent operation. It's neither parish nor diocese. So there are conflicts, there are Corey issues, parking and traffic. And of course, it takes extra police activity, I should say not activity, but extra police presence to get the flow through the parking lot and properly control traffic safely out on Route 1. So, and on the presidential, they did cancel school that day. Father Gallant negotiated that with the school director. And there's no question, the room is smaller than it should be. We'd love it to be twice as big. Now, you might say, why aren't we in the hall in the basement of the church? Well, November is the annual fair month. And of course, we can't conflict with that. So that was out. And we looked at a lot of different things in South Attleboro. In the meantime, last year, we did have a meeting with the school committee, or we appeared at one of their meetings and talked about this, and we realized, again, it was just going to be too complex to try to use Coelho or any other school. They needed like a year's worth of planning, excuse me, a year's worth of planning. And so with these special elections coming up on 45 to 90 days notice, that was never going to work. It was going to be too disruptive for our own public schools. So last month, we consulted the city solicitor, the state elections legal counsel, and the mayor, and our commission, the election commission, came up with this proposed special legislation, which is based on what Marlboro did just very few years ago, which gave them the flexibility to locate polling places outside of its own precinct, outside of an adjacent precinct, and into even non-adjacent precincts. And we have looked everywhere in South Attleboro and can't find anything available that is suitable. So that's what brings us here tonight. It would take approval of the council. Then, of course, it must be enacted by the legislature. And then our board would meet again and make a decision on relocation of the polling place. Now, as we said in the memo, and I've discussed with the mayor, would be the idea, if we're able to do this, do some consolidating at the same time. Now, our thought at the moment, of course, nothing's definite yet because it would take the legislation plus then a vote of our board, but would be to have Ward 1 join Ward 6 over at the Elks. The hall is big enough to hold 2 wards, 4 precincts. Likewise, if we're going to do some consolidating, have Ward 3 move from St. John's and join Ward 2 at Good News. More room there, better parking, less congestion, and of course we'll keep 4 and 5 at Last Let. Now we're consolidated down to 3 polling places, which can make a lot of logistical sense. So that's tentatively where this is headed, and obviously if we're going to do this, we'd like to be able to make the change so that we can not beg more hospitality at St. Teresa's before we have another election, whether it's a special or a general or whatever. So that's what brought us to this point.
Okay, is there any questions? Please, Council, please.
Thanks for coming in, George. It's
Yes.
always a pleasure to see you.
Oh, thank you.
I was just curious. In my, I've been inside all of the variety of polling locations, and would the good news? So I'm just thinking, like, my bus driver mind clicked into place and on trying to find the most direct and easiest route for residents and
Sure.
that live in Ward 1. What would be the most convenient for them? And I'm not trying to recreate your wheel or anything like that, but it's been my experience that as an act of convenience, instead of going out onto South Main Street, perhaps coming up to West Street from by the exit 3, would Good News Bible Chapel be able to accommodate 1, 2, and 3?
That might be a bit much. We haven't really considered that.
Okay.
That might be tight. I'll be honest with you, we really hadn't thought of putting 3 in one location. I mean, change is change, Nobody's going to be happy with change. And beyond, and really, I mean, for example, we've looked at, I'll name some of the things we've looked at. Assembly of God, Good Shepherd Church, Cardi's Furniture, the St. Teresa's Hall in the basement, Bethany Congregational Church, South Attleboro American Legion. And for various reasons, they're either not suitable or not available or both. So we do have to move out of South Attleboro. Obviously, we want to make the best choice we can. And, you know, whether it makes more sense for South Attleboro to come almost to downtown to Good News or go cross-country over to Hebronville. And you know, there may be no perfect, obviously there is no perfect answer.
Right.
We want to find ultimately what is the best answer in order to do it. So, you know, I mean, thinking of coming down County Street and trying to turn left at County Square can be a challenge. Certainly coming up South Avenue and trying to turn left onto Lathrop Drive, I don't recommend it. You know, so that's not always a good alternative. Going cross-country, you know, it's not a direct route, but I don't know, maybe it's safer than getting up near Route 95. But, and we know we have a lot of seniors in South Attleboro, and we don't want to discourage them. We don't want to discourage anybody. Heaven's sakes, we're doing everything we can to try to get out the vote, as the old expression goes. We don't put these shows on for nothing.
Absolutely.
We're prepared for the maximum. I'd love to see like 70% on April 3rd, but who knows what it's going to be. You know, it ought to be a high turnout. It ought to be as good as a presidential election, which would be about a 70% turnout. We'll let you know Wednesday.
If I could just readdress, so you are an incredibly thoughtful group of individuals, and you know, I know that this is a tough and challenging time, and we'll work the best that we can with you. I mean, I'm sure the ward counselor has some thoughts and concerns with regards to this too. But again, thanks for coming in tonight.
We had a very nice phone conversation, which she initiated. So we went over all these issues the other day, and I was glad to have the opportunity to do that.
So, Councilor Dolan, did you have?
I just have it, and I apologize if I missed what you said. Why are we moving St. John's to Good News?
Well, there's no compelling reason to do it, but if we were to consolidate it, we feel it would be better served at Good News. St. John's can get a little congested in the parking depending what the church is doing or what the funeral home is doing across the street. The rooms there aren't bad. One room is smaller than the other, and of course the wall is fixed. It's not an area where we can move a petition. And so we felt that perhaps if we were to make a move and could make a move, we may be better serving Ward 3 at the Good News Chapel.
Yes, you may.
I'm just wondering, because I vote at La Salette, and
Okay.
I know there's Ward 4 and 5 there.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's so big. The parking lot is so huge, and I don't know if there's ever been an election where I've had to wait more than like a minute to get my ballot. So has anybody looked at maybe throwing another ward in there, or at La Salette, or
That I think would be a challenge.
yeah.
That would be a challenge, because one of those rooms is bigger than the other. I think the Ward 4 room is a little bigger. Ward 5
Yeah, I go
is a
into
little
5.
smaller, and it has a stage area that can take up some of our space, so.
Because I just want to go in there, and there's
I don't
always
know that-
parking, and I'm in.
Oh,
and
I
out.
know, parking is,
I can vote in like 3 minutes and be done, and I go at different times, you know, and I don't know.
that's,
Not that I'm sure you've done everything you can to figure this out, but
that's because we need more of your neighbors to come in at the same time.
yeah, I just think, I know Good News, that can get pretty chaotic already without having St. John's.
Inside or outside?
Outside, like parking, there isn't a whole lot of parking there either.
There's two sides to the
Yeah,
parking. you
yeah,
know.
it's like a loop. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
there, and I know when I've been there during election time, it can get, like the traffic, it can get pretty chaotic there. So moving St. John's, I mean, I'm just kind of rambling.
That's just a
so-
thought. As I say, there's no compelling reason
Sure.
from St. John's or our board to move. We're just thinking of if we were to be able to make these kinds of changes,
Right.
does that consolidation make any sense?
Sure.
The compelling motivation, of course, is we have to leave St. Teresa's.
Right.
And we can't find anything else
Right.
in Ward 1, unfortunately, so.
So
Right,
I have
thank
an
you.
order. Counselor Conti, Counselor Blair, Counselor Reynolds, Counselor Jackson. So Counselor Conti?
George, my memory of the criteria for absentee voting is a little foggy. Would an elderly voter in South Attleboro have the option of saying, I'm not going to go all the way to the Elks to vote? I'd just soon fill out an absentee vote ballot.
Well, this is something our poll workers would love to do too, but technically the state law doesn't let them have that option, although there's been legislation for poll workers to allow them to vote absentee so that they could stay at their command post, which is probably at a different precinct. I think basically for one to be eligible for an absentee, that they're supposed to be not going to be in the city on that day, or not physically able to get to the polls on that day, but just to simply say, you know, hey, the heck with driving over to wherever they're sending me next time, I'm going to vote absentee. Technically, they're not supposed to do that.
So what is the vetting process? I mean, is that
You'd have to ask my office manager, past and present, whether or not we do how we might screen any of that. And
because my fear is that
I don't think anybody is refused, but obviously, if we started getting a high number of absentee ballots, it might cause.
So my concern is that if you skyrocket the volume of absentee ballots, the elections department is going to be overwhelmed.
Well, it is additional processing, different processing, and then those ballots have to get out to their respective precincts on election day. As long as we get them into the office by the close of polls, they count. So even if we can't get them to the precinct to be processed that day, we have to act upon them like if elections on a Tuesday, we act upon those on the following Friday of that week. So. Yeah, you know, I mean, I guess it can be done, although that's not supposed to be, like I say, the poll workers would love to be able to do that, because then they don't have to run from the Elks to St. John's if that's their precinct for voting, and that's what they have to do now.
Thank you.
Okay, so Counselor Blair, thank you.
Is any consideration, or is it possible we use the South Attleboro Fire Station, the apparatus floor?
Well, I don't know that we've spoken to anyone at the station, but I mean, I think with the activity that goes on down there, they have a function room, but I don't think that function room could hold a ward.
Yeah, how about
and I don't think they'd let us use a bay.
Why not?
Well, they probably need it.
My suggestion, just a suggestion. I think it's something that should be looked into personally.
We can ask. We can ask.
The apparatus room is quite large. It's centrally located for the people in South Attleboro. We moved the engines out that day and have a mobile command post or whatever. They still got that other area to get in and out and get emergency vehicles moved around.
I don't know. You know, in the past, I don't know if they were approached with the prior chief when Bill Crowley was searching. You know, my concern would be, you know, if the doors had to be open, what's the level of comfort? If they'd even let us use it.
They wouldn't have to be open. You got passage doors just like in any other building. But I would.
I know what.
If I was in South Attleboro and I was voting, that would be a central place for them to reach, easy accessible from Reed Street, South Ave, South Attleboro.
I know one limiting factor, Peter, would be parking. There is not a lot of parking at that station.
Anyway, it's just a suggestion, George. I think
we'd gladly ask the chief if that could be even considered.
It's something I think should be looked at.
Sure.
Thank you. Counselor Reynolds?
We can do that.
Is that it? I'm sorry.
No,
Right,
I'm
all
all
set?
set.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
So I did have an opportunity to speak with George, and of course he knows I'm still not, I'm not pleased, but and I need to say this publicly, certainly not with the election group, which I know has gone out of their mind trying to find a place for South Attleboro. And as I had said to George, you know, it's hard enough to get the South Attleboro people out to vote and then turn around and ask them to go all the way to the other side of the city because our school, which is right there, will not open up an avenue for people to vote, even though we could make it as safe as we made St. Teresa's, maybe even safer. So my distress comes with the school, who always wants sometimes something, but will not give back community help in exchange. And I am a big supporter of the schools, but this annoys me to no end. There are a lot of people in South Attleboro. They have to travel enough every day across that highway to get anywhere, Route 1, Route 1A. The traffic is unbearable, and now you're asking them to cross town. I find it offensive. Again, not the election people, but definitely the school committee and their reasonings, which make no sense to me. They can go on and on about what they think or why it's important, but there are many schools in this Commonwealth that use the schools on Election Day. And there is just nothing that will convince me that we couldn't have done it here in South Attleboro. And those are my comments.
If I may add one point to that, one of the concerns we as commissioners had was if we gained the support of the school committee to have an election or two at Coelho, for example, or any other school, we feared we could run the same course ultimately that we've run at St. Teresa's. We do it for an election or two, we do it for a year or two, and they say, you know what, this is just too much.
That's a good point.
It's too disruptive. You know, we've got snow days, we've got scheduling, we've got conflicts, parents are concerned, and yada, yada, yada. And I thought, you know what? I think we've tried everything we can to see if that alternative would work. And I'm concerned, and I think the other commissioners are concerned, in the long run, it probably just wouldn't work under the circumstances. So, regretfully.
Yeah, so to respond to that, the yada, 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 and regretfully is because I don't think the school is open to it. Not so much that the election commission couldn't make it happen, because schools, again, all over the Commonwealth do it. So why can't we? Why is it a problem for us when other schools in this Commonwealth of Massachusetts do it? So, yeah, I'm just not convinced, George. I'm just not convinced.
Well,
and so that's my final word on it.
It's not us, Sarah.
I know it's not you, and so I want to make that perfectly clear.
And thank you for your comments. And I have Councilor Jackson next, and then President Cooper, and then Councilor Blair again
I just wanted to make it.
for a redo. Okay, so
Thank you,
Councilor
Council
Jackson.
Hall. Attorney Spatcher, it's nice to see you. I like the idea of consolidating. I mean, it works great for us down at La Salette, and I just want to make a comment to Councilor Dolan. You're right, La Salette, we're in and out of there. That parking lot's huge. We're very fortunate that that happens. But unfortunately, like Mr. Spatcher was saying, people just aren't there to vote. So we have plenty of room. But I do like it being able to have two. And as a candidate, when I was, it makes it a lot easier, less places we have to go to, right? Where am I going with the rest of this? And then to Mr. Conti, elderly, no matter what, we can always count on them to vote. So we know they'll go wherever they have to go. That's my firm belief. But I do like what you're looking at. I like the foreseen plan. Because yes, if we ever get into this situation again, which we may be, this is a good plan. So I'm all for it. I'd love to have it in a school too, Sarah, but I don't see that happening. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
Thank you for your comments. And Councilor...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we have President Cooper's next, and then followed by Councilor Blair. Would you like to go again?
No, thank you.
So, George, at the sake of being somewhat repetitive, could you tell me, at this time around, when you were looking for spots, did you seek the support, or did you seek the relief from the schools to hold it at either Coelho or Hill Roberts?
We did not this year. I think it was last year that we agreed to appear at one of their meetings and talked about this at length with the school committee and the administration. And it was just getting to be a very complex process because they wanted at least a year's worth of pre-planning in their schedules. They wanted to be sure that there was no school on the days of elections, and complex enough to try to work in our regular annual elections, whether they're municipal, state, or presidential. But then as specials come up, and in my own opinion, I think I think specials are becoming a way of life because people move around, things change, whatever. And we just could not see the schools dealing with that short notice scheduling. So the commissioners felt it wasn't going to be productive to go back to the school committee again. We weren't getting any indication that anything was going to be any different than when we met with them last year. We had a very amicable meeting, but we just couldn't seem to come together close enough to make things work because of their scheduling requirements.
So I guess I too would be on and have the same comment that I think for the sake of the individuals voting in particularly Ward 1, having a Ward 1 polling location is pretty important. And if the school is the last resort, then I think at least for Ward 1, perhaps we should, and maybe we can't do it right now, but we should revisit that conversation.
We can try.
Thank you.
Yes,
We can try.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, Councilor Blair?
Just a quick comment, and I know I'm older than anybody else sitting here, but we used to close schools on election days when I was in, because we looked forward to it as kids. That was a day out of school, was election day, so.
And because we used to vote at the schools.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
day out of school.
When I was a
the
kid at
pupils.
Bliss, we voted at Bliss, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it happened in the past. Special elections got to be a hassle. I mean, you can plan
Yeah.
a state election, a presidential election,
Yeah.
a local election, you know. But we did do it at schools at one time.
Things certainly got a little bit more complex since
Haven't
then.
And Vice President Parika, please.
Thank you. So to Councilor Jackson's point, I very much like the consolidation because I know that we have to pay a fee at some place, like a rental fee. And so then that would be a reduction for
Right.
us if we're going from, 6 polling locations or, 5 polling locations to less than that. So I think that's terrific. And I would like the conversation to take place with the schools because some temperament has changed within the schools with their 5-year sustainability plan and things like that, they might be able to accommodate that. And again, special elections can be challenging, things like that, but they have the ability to, if we're going to, and I'm going to say it, if we're going to have a warming station at one of our schools during a, state of emergency, then and we have parents walking in and out of basketball games and all sorts of things. Like the goal, it is my understanding that the goal of the schools is to have the schools be part of the community. And it might be a very good time for us to revisit that. So,
Thank you. And I had Councilor Holmes.
I was actually, I had a comment financially about if it was going to cost less, but I also just, before you end, if you can just remind people in Ward 1 where they should go, because all this discussion, I don't want them to...
We're required by law to mail out postcards, publish in the newspaper, post notifications. We use the electronic digital signs, which I understand are going to be up throughout the city tomorrow, advertising April 3rd. Yeah, we have to, by law, do due diligence notification because, yeah, you don't want people showing up at the old polling place and being discouraged. And certainly when we do move from St. Teresa's to wherever, we've got to be sure we've got notices on the windows down at St. Teresa's Parish Center, because undoubtedly people will show up there and say, gee, if I got the wrong day or whatever, and direct them to wherever they should be. That is all, change is always an issue. And that was what was going through my mind when Heather was speaking. We certainly wouldn't want an arrangement with the schools whereby we can have our regular general elections as we can program a year ahead at the schools, and then when a special comes up, they say, no, you can't come here, find another place to go.
Right.
Well, that would never work because our poor voters would be so confused, they just get totally discouraged. So we have to have a fixed polling place that we can be at for the foreseeable future, whatever ward and precinct we're in.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds? Yes.
So my final comment is thank you to all my colleagues that believe South Attleboro should have some space. And if we are the only ones that need a school, then I, again, firmly believe that the school is part of the community. You can certainly get the police there, you can guard it, you can do whatever you have to do, just like we did at the daycare facility. And I just think that there should be open minds considering this. You're talking about a lot of people and you're asking them to go all the way across town. When especially at the time that we had it at Coelho Middle School, the principal at the time that was there said that everything went really well and that it worked really well. The police said it worked really well. The parking went really well. Everyone said it went really well, including the school committee person from Ward 1. So we were all astounded that we were then told we can't do it. And if other places in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, other schools can do it, there is absolutely no good, legitimate reason that Attleboro cannot use a school for voting, especially since we're basically asking for just one ward. Everyone else has some place that they can go. So thank you, and thank you to my colleagues. And thank you, George.
Well, and Sarah, I will say, the administration, when we were at Coelho, from the school to the superintendent's office, was very supportive and very accommodating.
Yes, they were.
And that day worked very well.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. And they said, basically, they said, if the school committee okays it, we're ready to have you come back.
Exactly true.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
know where the blame lays.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
Your words, not mine. I won't say that.
You know me, George.
It was their prerogative at the
I
time.
did have another question. So, sorry, is that okay?
Yes, it is.
So the financial piece, though, does this save the city money? If we were
Moving
to
out of
do-
St. Teresa's does, because not only paying rent, we pay a sexton fee. We do have to have extra police patrols there to maintain the parking lot at Route 1. We did also rent tent canopies for the outside entrances to the parish center, because there's no room inside for waiting, so we created a waiting area outside. We also rented a pod-type storage unit, which is on site right now for the 2 elections, because we move out whatever furniture remains in that room when they take out what they can and what they need. We put the rest of it in that unit to open up every square foot of floor space that we can. So there will be a financial savings to leaving there, and that's not the motivation. We've been asked to leave, and we're thankful that we've been able to be there, but there will be a savings. That's correct.
If we move forward with this plan for Ward 2 and 3 together, maybe we could still revisit the Coelho possibly at this point.
I will ask. I will speak to the school committee chairman and the superintendent. Maybe the 3 of us can meet and talk about some of the things that have come out here tonight and see whether there's anything that they might be willing to do to help us. And as well, we'll talk with the fire chief. So we'll talk with those people.
Everybody good? Okay, so in terms of process, George, if you could just, let's walk this through. So tonight, all we're voting on is to give you the opportunity to even have this discussion.
Right.
So just to make it clear, so we don't have to actually know at this point in time what the end game is going to be. It's just the opportunity that they need to have this discussion and have our permission to even pursue this. So that's the process. That's what we're voting on from the committee tonight. So if there's no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any nays? No nays. Seeing, so it's unanimous?
So it would then be reported back to the mayor, and
Say motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Unanimous and the motion passes.
thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it would go back, you'd report this to the mayor, and the mayor would then get a hold of the legislative delegation. They collectively, presumably, would file this legislation and put it through the House and Senate for enactment. I understand typically these kinds of special legislations go through fairly smoothly, because the legislature knows once there's a vote like this, the community wants to do this. They want this flexibility that this legislation would allow. And once that is done and enacted, then it would come back to our board to make a decision. Obviously, we have public meetings. We certainly will make everybody involved aware when the time comes that, okay, it's decision time. We've got to decide what we're doing, because we've got to move, at least one polling place must move. And so, but this would be enactment that would allow us that authority. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
So much for your
you.
detail today.
All right. Have a good evening.
And your time, thank you. So I'd like to make a motion, I'm going to adjourn the Committee of Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters at, what is that, 7:40, looks like 7:40.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's a unanimous, the motion passes, and we're concluding the Committee on Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters, and I ask for a committee at the next bill time.
Thank you. Reporting for Public Safety Emergency Management Committee. I have one motion this evening. From the docket of April 3rd, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $26,000 from account 1220100-513000 fire time overtime to account 1291100-513005 emergency management fire overtime regarding the reserve fire engine and personnel assigned to the Rehoboth Fire Station due to the Wilmar Street culvert delays, and funds to maintain the staffing and overtime for the additional 8 days.
Second.
I have it, where this is coming out of the fire department budget at this time, rather than coming out of the general fund, I really haven't, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to talk to the chief about this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to have some conversation with him. You know, I will make it my business to do so this week before it comes out for a vote.
Perfect.
Any questions or comments?
I do.
Yes.
Thank
ma'am.
you. I think the reason that it's coming out of the fire overtime and moving it into the emergency account is because we've asked for special funding because it was an emergency, and if we get reimbursed, it has to come out of that account. I believe that that's how it is. You're going to still check on it.
Yeah.
But I'd also have a question, because this came down last Tuesday evening,
Yeah.
which was already pre-typed up before the culvert was repaired, because it was finished at 2 o'clock that afternoon. I'd like to get an exact amount of what the chief is going to need, because by now he should know what he's paid out to his employees. So that
will.
would be great. Thank you.
I know you asked me about that last week, Kate, and I told you up front I didn't talk to him about it.
Yep.
And I will definitely, between now and next week, I'll have a conversation.
Thank you very
with him.
much.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I got one other thing I'd like to bring up tonight, because it's, first of all, an era that goes back. It's close to me. I lost good friends over there, and some of those gentlemen come back in tough shape. It's not known big Memorial Day, but Thursday the 29th is National Vietnam War Memorial Day. So I'd like to give my thanks to the veterans that served in Nam. I mean, it was a war that was horrible, and those soldiers coming back didn't get treated the way I think they should have been treated. Myself, personally, I did not go. It was my time, but married with kids, they didn't take me. And I don't think I missed a lot. I know a lot of friends that went over. My class, I graduated in 1960 from Attleboro High. And our first reunion, coming back, our class reunion, the first and second, was very touching with some of the vets that either come back in tough shape or didn't make it back. So I'd like to say thank you to those that served, and that their service was deeply appreciated by all of us. I know at the time it really wasn't, and it should have been. I have no other business this evening for Public Safety and Emergency Management. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reporting for the Public Works Committee, I'd like to call my committee meeting to order at 7:44. I actually have 3 motions, but I'm going to hold on to one because I've asked Superintendent Mike Tyler to attend my meeting, and so I'm going to host a meeting next Tuesday night before the regular meeting at 6:30, and he will be in attendance to discuss the Pike Avenue culvert repairs. So I'm going to bring out the other 2 motions. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $20,000 from account 6100-578300 Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account 6100-553181 Water Enterprise Fund Treatment Plant Supplies regarding the need to purchase materials for the remaining raw water pump rehabilitation and for purchases related to the maintenance of the treatment plants for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Second.
Thank you. So this had come down from our acting superintendent, Courtney Wunschel. I hope I pronounce her name correctly. There are 4 raw water pumps. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're numbered just like that. So 2 and 4 were rebuilt in 2011, but before they even were able to rebuild 4 had gone down, and they can't afford to have another one go down. So number 1 they just checked, and number 1 right now is pretty deteriorated. So they want to get that rebuilt before it goes down, and their supply account right now is pretty low. So they're transferring all this money to replace that, or to rebuild that one, and to get the rest of them up to speed. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I thank you. Secondly, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $15,000. Bless you.
Excuse me.
From account 6000-578300 Wastewater Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account 6000-524240 Wastewater Enterprise Fund Equipment Maintenance regarding the need for funds to repair a filter press feed pump. Phew.
Second.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this feed pump is in mechanical need, is having mechanical and hydraulic issues, and just needs to and it's one of their most critical pieces of equipment that they use down there to replace the sludge before it goes to the sludge landfill, raw water. Any comments? Anybody want to talk about it?
I have
Sludge and raw water.
I have to say, Councilor Jackson, you do such a great job of managing things that are slightly less than savory, but you do it with grace and ease every time we have to talk about these kinds of things. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, but we all use it, don't we? That we do. Yes, we do. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes the Public Works Committee. And again, I will be having a meeting next Tuesday night, 6:30, and my guest will be Superintendent Mike Tyler. Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:47. Yeah, I love saying that. That's right. 7:47. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Capital Improvement City Development Committee to order at 7:47. Sitting on this committee is Councilor Dolan and Councilor Hall. I have one item to bring before you this evening from the docket of April 3rd, 2018, and then I'd like to follow up with a discussion on the Capital Improvement Plan. I entertain a motion to hold a public hearing on April 17, 2018, relative to the administration's proposed program year 2018 Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Budget for the CDBG Entitlement Year July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, the proposed program year 2018 Annual Action Plan, and to request that the mayor, on behalf of the City of Attleboro, be authorized to submit to the Department of Housing and Urban Development the proposed CDBG budget and proposed activities to be undertaken during the upcoming CDBG entitlement year.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. So, for the public and others who may not understand what is going on, this is Housing and Urban Development funding to the City of Attleboro, well over $700,000 if my memory serves me right. This this always comes down to the wire right around May, and we might even need to have an emergency meeting as we get closer, depending on what's going on with HUD. Last year, when the administration in Washington turned over from Democratic to Republican, it caused an absolute stir. And it was an absolute panic, and many thought that the CDBG budget completely might be eliminated. So there's a lot of trauma last year, and some of that's still trickled through this year. But locally, what's going on is that the mayor and the planning department and Dorothy at the community development office are all going to get together to review the budget and the request for the monies and make some decisions. And then I'm meeting with Dorothy separately after following their decisions before we get to this public hearing. So we will know where we are and where we're going. And I will share that information with you as we get closer. But this is really routine, and we've been very fortunate to have the HUD Development Block Grant come up. And unfortunately, we don't usually have a lot of people come and speak at the public hearing, because the funds really have done a tremendous amount of good for the city of Attleboro, both in soft services and in capital structures. The new Angel Park, the new Watson factory building that's going to become senior housing on Mechanic Street are two very good examples of last year's program that are going to have a long-term impact on the city. That concludes my comments. Do you have any questions? Good, we can vote. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and that's wonderful. On capital improvement tours, this Saturday, March 24th, at 9 o'clock, we are going to be, March 31st at 9 o'clock, we're going to be at the Public Works new headquarters to meet with Mike Tyler to go over, number one, the consulting engineering report on the state of the road conditions for the city of Attleboro that was done under the supervisory of Lance Hill. We're going to review that plan and talk about how we might be able to fund that in addition to the Chapter 90 dollars. So for those of you who may not remember, the consultant said if you want the roads to stay just as bad as they are right now, you need $1.7 million in addition to the $1.2 million you're getting from Chapter 90 dollars. That's a big number. That's bigger than any other number that's in our capital improvement plan. And we can't ignore it. We're going to have to deal with it in some manner. So we're going to have that conversation, and we're going to have to make a recommendation to the council. March 31st, this Saturday, following our discussions at Public Works at the new headquarters, we are then going at 10 o'clock to the Water Department, where we will meet with Courtney, and she will discuss her urgent plans. So this is all separate. This is now enterprise, but it's still capital improvements. And when we're done with the Water Department, we're going to the Wastewater Department to look at pumps and other things that need to be repaired. So it's going to be a late day Saturday morning. Saturday morning probably go beyond 11 o'clock for sure, because we're really doing three departments. And those of you who have been going have seen it's nice to really get inside these departments and take a look at them. But trust me, the capital improvement plan is being well vetted this year. Following March 31st, on April 7th at 9 o'clock, we will be at the Sanford Street parking garage. And on April 7th at 10 o'clock, we'll be at the Academy building across the street. And then finally on April 14th at 9 o'clock, we'll be at the fire department in South Attleboro. And we'll be going, when we're done there, to Union Street. The tour will be done by two of the captains at each location. And that will conclude our tours, unless I hear from city department heads who wish to be included that have not been included. What I've done is I've only selected the biggest amounts from the past plan, which was very late last year, to select what I thought we should go out and look at. But I'm open to going to another one. But I am planning on having the capital improvement plan right now for April 1st. I am planning on having a recommendation to the mayor and a vote out of this council by the second week of May, so that we can get our capital improvement recommendation which is going to be very different this year than it has been the last 28 years, out before we get into the budget procedures. That's very important to me, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. I see questions from any of my committee members. Yes, go ahead.
I just wondered if it's possible to update this calendar. I've got scribbles all over it, and so is that possible just to?
Here we go. Right, March 31st at 9 o'clock, Public Works.
I mean, is it possible to actually have you update it and hand it back out again?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes, I will publish a new calendar.
Thank you, thanks, just so I know. I know myself and Miss Evelyn Silva showed up at the academy last.
And I'm sorry that happened,
That's okay.
because I misspoke last Tuesday night.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry that
She's
happened.
fine, she said just let her know when you're gonna be there, so.
It won't happen again. Yes, Councilor Perga.
It was my recollection that the tour of the Park and Forestry building had been canceled because we had a weather event, and you had bumped it towards the end. Do you know when that was?
So we did that last week.
Was it last week?
Yeah.
My apologies.
It's okay. That was a very revealing tour, by the way. What happened last week at the Park and Forestry Department is that we met in the Cape Run Park building and went through his plan. He's new, and I felt, honestly, that I probably knew more about the capital improvement plan than he had time to really dig into it, and that's fine, you know. But what I hadn't seen and what he showed us, and I'm very happy that we did see, was the repair shed up on the hill, which I've never been in.
Awful.
Oh, it is awful.
It floods.
Not only does it
crazy.
flood, there's no insulation, and it is a substandard work condition environment. How's that?
I would 110% agree with you on that.
right. So-
There's no bathroom facilities.
Correct.
Our
Correct.
city employees are having lunch next
Can
to
you imagine
fertilizer. That's how it rolls up.
Can you
in there,
imagine
and
being
it's
an employee in an interview in that building?
right.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry. Well, we obviously feel the same way about this. But
Write it in your calendar.
Councilor Holmes, I see you have a question.
Well, I was just going to say thank you for putting this together. I think it's really important to really look at everything in the city, and so that way we're a little bit more familiar with what we're going to be working on. So thanks for setting this up.
So, Councilor Holmes, what I've done so far is I've asked each department head when I meet with them to give me what they gave to Mr. Erasian. And I've culled through the urgent things and pulled them together. And we've made some decisions in our meetings to move some priorities based on the conversations that we've had. So I've taken those and I've scanned them electronically and I've circulated them through Virginia to the committee members. And if I don't get a capital improvement plan on April 1st as promised, then I'm going to release those electronic devices to all the councilors. And that is going to be a working capital improvement plan, digital working plan, until we do get the capital improvement plan. But we really cannot have a public hearing on the capital improvement plan until it's published for the public to review. And I'm hoping that that won't be too farther than April 1st. Councilor Cooper, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just wanted to say that I've been in the Park and Forestry building as well, and I agree with both of your comments on that. I think maybe the only person in Attleboro that likes it is Jeremiah, but that's beside the would you, and I know that this will probably send some shockwaves through the press, but it has to be said publicly, that would you, when you're at the DPW yard, please ask them to identify for the capital improvements visit the roof leaks in that new building that I've come to understand are there. So if you would be so kind as to identify them, and then identify in your capital improvements plan what the plan is to remedy that, whether it's with the contractor or with the city. But I've come to understand that there's one in particular that needs attention.
You're bringing back a memory from a meeting about 8 months ago at the Municipal Building Commission when that leak was first discovered. And they were having discussions with Mark, I think who was the super on that, the clerk of the works. And I'm sorry to hear that it hasn't been resolved, so it will be explored.
Thank you. As of the last storm, I was there and the water was
Last storm was pretty remarkable. I
Well,
mean,
it
when you
doesn't
get
matter,
a,
it's a new building.
yeah, my new roof leaked in the last storm. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, can I just ask one question? Who's going to do be giving the tour at the Sanford Street parking garage?
That is going to be conducted by Chief Financial Officer Barry Lacasse.
Okay, thank you.
And the Sanford building, Academy building, will be Mayor Haru, assisted by Evelyn Sylvia. I'm sure she wouldn't miss that for the world. The fire department, way out there in April 14th, is going to be done by the fire captains, because the fire chief has a urgent time recorder obligation for his son's basketball games, which I support. And so, we don't need the fire chief to take us through the fire buildings. We do need someone knowledgeable to explain what we're looking at. On Saturday, I expect Courtney and Paul to do the water and wastewater. And Michael has agreed to do the roof, the DPW. So we're coming to the end. And the documents that I've been sending to you
Thank you.
are not the great big giant book. It's only what is really a problem, because that's what I want us to focus on this year. I think that's challenging enough. And at the same time, I've been looking at the amount of bonding ability the city has. So I'm thinking of probably meeting with Lauren, the treasurer, and maybe the treasurer needs to come down and address to the committee on this new procedure of looking to bond capital improvements rather than waiting for everything to be at the end of the year and dispensing with free cash. It's a different way of working the budget. And it has an impact on our budget process, and I'm sorry that Jay isn't here tonight. We haven't had a chance to fully discuss it. But I've had long conversations with the mayor about it. And I got this inspiration at a MAA conference 8 years ago. And that concludes my comments. And so, with that, I'll call for an adjournment of the Capital Improvement City Development Committee.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor? Aye. I declare the Capital Improvement City Development Committee adjourned at 8:01.
Do you want to call the?
Do I want to go? Yeah, that's going to be a real short meeting. Let me call the Special Committee on Council Rules and Procedures to order at 8:01. Sitting on this committee are Councilors Cobus and Parika. And I have no motions to bring before you this evening, but I just want to report progress to you and to the committee, the council, and to the public, that the committee has met and reviewed Article 1 and Article 2, and has come to a committee agreement on what Article 1 and Article 2 should be in a recommendation to the council for the council to consider. Therefore, in 2 weeks, we will vote Article 1 and 2 out of our committee, and in 3 weeks, it'll be up in front of the council to adopt Articles 1 and 2. But you will receive the proposed Article 1 and 2s probably tomorrow in your email electronically. And that concludes the news from the Special Committee on Council Rules and Procedures. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is successful, and I declare the Special Committee on Rules and Procedures adjourned at 8:03.
Go ahead.
So,
Hold on one second.
Rick, can I just make one clarification? The strike through on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. is only because you haven't reviewed those sections yet?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
There's
Thank
an
you for that.
independent document that is only Article 1 and 2.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, I call the Zoning and Land Use Committee to order at 8:02. Sitting on the committee is myself, Councilor Hall, and Councilor Delicio. So I don't have any business to attend to today. The only thing I wanted to bring to people's attention is this document that I distributed. Everybody should have a copy of this. It's a quick analysis of what 500 feet looks like throughout the city. You'll remember that the recommended RMD ordinance change was to change the offset distance from an RMD building to a residential use or a parcel zone for residential from 100 feet to 500 feet. This is a quick summary of what 500 feet looks like, and I'll run through it. What I basically did is drew the main routes through Attleboro, and then measured off 500 feet from either side of the road. Now, I understand that that's not 100% accurate because it should be measured from the building to the nearest property, but for estimation and for this analysis, that was sort of the best we could do. And then I looked at different regions throughout the city and highlighted areas where we could put potential RMDs, and then that's what's in here. I looked at the downtown region. I looked at regions in South Attleboro. I also looked at commercial regions, which is not part of what we're talking about now. But when we move forward with the recreational ordinance, that will be something considered. So I wanted to, while doing this analysis, include that here so you can see this information. And then I looked at the existing locations and drew the buffer around that is 500 feet, so you could see how some of the existing locations would become non-conformant with this 500 feet. And then the last page is just a quick picture of what it would look like as 100 feet. Now, so everyone has copies of that. There's also, I'll make sure everybody gets a digital copy. There's also a link where you can explore this online and play around with it and see the different, explore the map and see specific locations and what it looks like. So we're not going to do anything with this today. Just handed it out for people's information. We're still waiting for a ruling from the planning board. I've sent this to Gary, and hopefully they'll see this. But for right now, we're not going to do anything with this. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Hearing none.
Yeah, no motion.
Well, I think I have one question, I'm sorry. So the last page is the 100 feet, and then everywhere else, I'm sorry, I might have missed the beginning, is 500 feet. So all the others are for the 500.
All the other pages are 500, but just so you can visualize what it would look like at 100 feet, that's there. And if you go online, you can toggle back and forth between 500 feet and 100 feet and look at whether is zoned, you could put up an overlay based on the zoning or the land use and different options.
So for the 500 feet, were there many areas that could be considered or not?
There were not. It was very restricted.
Okay.
It-
Thank you.
If I may, just in the motion in front of you, or the business that we're waiting on a recommendation from the planning board, is to drop it from 1,000 to 500. Isn't that correct?
No, it's to increase it from 100
to the
500. Correct, for
Okay.
the offset from residential.
Offset residential, thank you.
Correct. Yes, Councilor
You're
Reynolds.
asking to keep it at 100.
I'm
No, you're not asking,
for
you're
anything right
showing the
now.
differences
I'm-
so that we could in turn make some decisions about whether 500 is too much.
Correct.
As a whole, we
I'm
could make
just
that.
presenting
You're
my
just
analysis
presenting
right
so we can really look at it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Good information, quite frankly, yeah.
Yeah, great information.
Because I actually had always thought the 500 was pretty restrictive.
It was surprising to me. I couldn't visualize 500 feet in my head, and once I started to look at it, it was a fairly large distance.
It's true. I think at one point, if I might,
Yes.
Councilor Cooper, President Cooper, we talked about this several years ago, about 500 feet. If we kept it up, there'd be no place we'd actually be eliminating any place anybody could be, so why are we even discussing it if we're going to make 500 feet the standard. So I think it's great.
Right now, I'm just presenting.
Yeah, but it's great.
the
It's great that you did.
President Cooper?
So interestingly, it was 2013, January something of 2013. I went back and looked at the records today that we discussed it, and some of these distances were state regulated, and I'm gonna check the regulations again to make sure that we're not violating that if we make any changes. And secondly, some of them were at the request of counselors to garner their support for the overall motion that was before this honorable body. So it wasn't something that was, and quite frankly, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I spent several hours today investigating, a particular matter that we sent a letter for. We are not at a loss for applicants coming to the city of Attleboro. So we have sent several letters of opposition. We got another one today, a request for non-opposition. So yes, 500, whatever it is, we're racking our brains and going cuckoo, but we have lots of applicants asking us for letters of non-opposition. We've set them forth. We've had plenty of applicants come. We've granted 2 special permits. We have another one that's going for zoning relief, at least one going for zoning relief because of some of these restrictions, and I get that this needs to be reviewed, but it's sort of aggravating me to a certain extent that we spend all this time doing this, and we're talking about we can't happen and it's restrictive and it's this and that. Well, if it was so restrictive, we wouldn't have all these applicants asking for this permission. I don't necessarily feel the same way I did in 2013 about the distances, or about, we've learned a lot between then and now, so I'm happy that we're having this conversation, and I'm happy that we're having this conversation with the draft ordinance for the recreational use as well, and I think there's opportunity in expanding that when we get to that point. But it's sort of frustrating to me to hear that it's limited. It's not limited. Look at the applications that we've had for letters of non-opposition. And this council wanted to know about it. In fact, this council voted in opposition of giving permission to the Zoning Board of Appeals for this very reason. So it's sort of contradictory what we say and what we do in my brain. I'm having it's a little contradictory to me when we say it's restrictive, but we want the control over it, but we don't want to when it's about distance. So I just want to make sure that we're clear and we're not sending any sort of confusing messages to our applicants or to the community about sort of where we stand with distance. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Well, and with regards to that, we are talking, the change that's proposed, and as it stands, is to increase the distance from residential from 100 to 500. And that's what this analysis is looking at.
Right, if I may, but we also changed how we defined measuring the distance.
Yes.
So you're not comparing apples to apples, and I'm okay with this. I'm actually okay with any amendments that would perhaps be offered to lower it. I would likely support that. I don't know what they would be because we're not at that point right now, but again, I think there's been other changes made to affect those distances. It's not just about the distance. So that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Councilor Dolan?
I don't know if you know the answer or if I can ask through you. When there is an applicant, do we have a location? Does this applicant have a location in mind when they submit an application?
Yes.
Yes, they do. So when they send an application to us.
So that's typical.
Yes, they say, and in fact, in my most recent email from the Department of Public Health, they want to know whether or not that was mentioned in the initial communication to us, and was the council aware of where they were locating their facility at the time of the non-opposition. It's also part of the host agreement, which is lots of pages long, and gives that level of detail, what specifically they will do at each of the facilities, and then what the physical address of that facility is.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
So, Chairman, the Cannabis Control Commission starts issuing licenses April 1st, next week? Is that
No,
true?
they
July.
start accepting applications.
Accepting applications for licenses next week. So the process is flowing along. I'm pleased with the way we've managed with it, given the amount of confusion that it's been as it's moved along. I'm hoping that my 3% city tax is still in the mix of all that. And I am attending a marijuana cannabis control presentation tomorrow in Taunton in the morning. And if I learn of anything that sounds like it's going to have an impact on Attleboro, I've promised President Cooper, and I'm offering the same to you, that I'll text the both of you following the 1 o'clock closing if I've heard anything that I think is alarming. And otherwise, I think it's just going to be a review and the typical. The Cannabis Control Commission has been going on tour, to try to espouse the work that they've done and the vetting that they've done and I think that's what this is. And thank you for the opportunity to get that out. Those are my comments.
With regards to the 3% tax, I did reach out to the city solicitor, and she got back to me with details on how we need to move forward with that, and I still need to follow up, but yes, that is very much still in the works.
So, thank you. So, even though you're working on this piece, it's not like we're saying no to anybody. That's what I hear, that there's an openness to, we want to help people, but at the same time, we have to kind of figure out exactly what the zoning will look like.
This amendment is strictly to clarify some of the details with the RMD ordinance.
Okay. But it's not holding up anybody from saying, I have an interest.
No. Any further comments? That said, I move to adjourn the Zoning and Land Use Committee.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The Zoning and Land Use Committee is adjourned at 8:15.
Call to order the committee meeting for transportation and traffic at 8:15. On my committee are Councilors Conti and Reynolds. I have a little bit of housekeeping to do here. I'm going to read a motion that hope that you'll support. It is my recommendation to strike it from the docket of March 6, 2018. I make a motion to strike the following: to install a no parking here to corner sign on Pine Road at Washington Street.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. This particular piece of business I brought in just kind of as an earmarker. We had an enthusiastic constituent who was concerned with regards to this, and thankfully I would like to take a moment to thank not only the police chief but Mike Tyler. We managed this circumstance as quickly as we could with 3 nor'easters and snowbanks and things like that. The sign has been installed, so this is no longer a concern. I'll move for a vote. Any questions or concerns? No. All those in favor? Aye. And motion passes. You were the second on that, Councilor Conti, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I did have Traffic Study Commission 2 weeks ago. We did I gave them their homework for our next Traffic Study Commission meeting as it pertains to installing stop signs at Lilac and Springdale. I will have 2 pieces of new business as it pertains to stop signs and potentially adjusting some speed limits on County Street. That was a letter that came into the Municipal Council, and a C-click fix. We'll hear all about that next Tuesday. I am going to hold any of the business with regards to Stobbs Drive and a restriction on parking there. I have an email in to the principal over there and president, and I've had a conversation with the police chief, and things are kind of developing at that location, so I just want to kind of give them time to shake that out. At Councilor Conti's request, and President Cooper's request, I did send an email to the administration regarding the solar warning light at the end of County Street. And there's a small amount of confusion right now as to whether or not that was actually referred to the administration, so I think we'll make a motion just to ensure that that does get referred to the administration. However, it's my understanding that it was. We did get a quote on that from the DPW director, and it would be, being that we are not allowed, we don't move money around, we can't make that request. That again was referred back to the mayor, who would then have to send it down in the mayor's communication. President Cooper.
Who's the quote
From?
to?
City of Attleboro, 77 Park Street, DPW office. Attention, Kathy.
So I'm still somewhat dismayed that it didn't get referred to that the business didn't get referred to the administration. And Councilor Conti helped me remember, if you remember. This came out, we voted on it. We can't spend money, so we sent it to the administration to fund, previous administration to fund the request. The request went out to get a price, and then that needs to come back down to us to get funded. So I don't know where the lapse is, but so I'll surrender the floor to Councilor Conti, so maybe he remembers, but
Thank you. I do remember. One evening, three superintendents ago, the acting superintendent appeared before the committee with a page of a catalog saying the device was $2,000 and change, and we said, that's terrific. Let's find the money and get it done. And it died.
So if I may, to all of you, there was some discussion this afternoon going back to that period of time. I know that Walt Warris from the Traffic Study Commission does have a letter stating that they support the installation of this light. Some of the confusion may be that I think that initially it may not have been a solar light. It may have been a flashing light, and that why the cost was a little bit more at that time. We're working things out upstairs to kind of get that period of time. However, you did reintroduce business in December, and it was my understanding that it was referred to the administration at that time, and that's where this came from. At the.
So that brings a point of order. Exactly what does this council need to do to get the administration to send down a request for funding?
So that's, if I may, so there has been some email communication back and forth. President Cooper, this quote for $1,575 for a solar light, 30 by 30 solar powered LED flashing signs, intersection ahead, 24/7 blinking, 3-year warranty, all of the bells and whistles. At your request, I did send an email to the mayor and to the DPW director. This came back through that email communication. President Cooper was very supportive and said, great, this is, they weren't really sure what to do after that. And President Cooper was like, great, it needs to come down in the mayor's communication to be funded. So that would be what my expectation would be for Tuesday. Hopefully this Tuesday, that this would be part of the mayor's communication to be funded by the municipal council. President Cooper.
Thank you. So yes, when the communication was going back and forth, I made a respectful request that they send a communication from Mike with that quote attached to the council, declaring the funding source, so this council could vote the money to fund the installation of that light. And I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen Tuesday. Well, I didn't have my meeting with the mayor tonight to verify that, but I will ask.
Sure. Councilor Jackson.
I just gotta say this. We have so many new department heads. We have to
Be patient.
pass a little grace. We do. And there's so many newbies that are asking each other what to do. Here you go. This is,
What's the process?
here you go. And we have a new administrator who's never been a boss before. So learning all the curves and how to run the city and how to run a department. It is what it is. So thank you. It'll get to the right place and it'll come back down to us next week. And I think you're going to be one happy counselor. I hope.
You're right.
That is also my hope, Councilor Jackson. I was happy to we kept this as part of my committee so that it is an earmarker for us to follow up on. And so I was happy. I was actually, truthfully, because of the circumstances as they are, I was surprised that I got a quote so quick. In a response to an email within a few days, that was what that response was. So that was just kind of a piece of business that people needed to be aware of, because it is something that we have discussed on the council floor, and it's something that we're looking for. Other than that, I will have new language as it pertains to the Riverbank Road. We have to have that I have to introduce that here. We have the business, but I have to have the language, and then we'll be able to move forward on Riverbank Road. Any other questions, concerns for traffic and transportation this evening? All right, then I will move for adjournment. All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned at 8:23.
License Committee has no business this evening. I'd like to call for a meeting at the appropriate time.
So I'd like to call the City Property and Claims Committee to order at 8:25. Committee members are myself, Councilor Blair, and Councilor Holmes. I have two from the docket. From the docket of April 3rd, 2018, I entertain a motion to declare the following public works equipment as surplus for trade-in or resale value and available for disposition. A 2001 Elgin Pelican sweeper. The VIN number is S8926S. The hours that it's been used has been 4,764, and it is in poor condition. There is a 1998 Mustang 2050 skid steer. The VIN number is SH97L000. It's been used 3,806 hours, and the condition is poor.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions concerning this? Okay, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. I entertain a motion to declare the following Water Department equipment as surplus and available for disposition. 3 Halma Robicon 7.5 horsepower VFD model number PWM 454352, and the condition is obsolete.
Second.
Thank you. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It is obsolete, so it is not going to be in use any longer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. And that is all the business the City Property and Claims Committee has this evening. And I would like to adjourn this meeting, or request an adjournment at 8:27.
Second.
Thank you. So we are adjourned at 8:27.
Hello, I call the Personnel and Human Services Committee to order at 8:26. Oh, sorry, 8:27. Members are myself, Councilor Reynolds, and Councilor Blair. I have 5 motions tonight. I entertain a motion to... Most of the motions have to do with reappointments, so there's a lot of names that I'm going to be reading. I entertain a motion to confirm the following reappointments to positions for terms as indicated. Nari Kes Dolores, the Attleboro, she will be appointed to the Attleboro Housing Authority, 5-year term to expire February 2023. Catherine Merkel, Personnel Board, 3-year term to expire February 2021. Kara Davis, Youth Commission, 2 years, term to expire February 2020. Alexandra Sawyer, Youth Commission, 2-year term to expire February 2020. Ryan Delisio, Youth Commission, term is 2 years, to expire February 2020. Sarah Rebelio, sorry, I probably pronounced that wrong. Youth Commission, term is 2 years, expires February 2020. Donovan Riley, Youth Commission, 2-year term to expire February 2020. Kent Richards, Zoning Board of Appeals, 3-year term to expire February 2021. Sandra Verrier, Zoning Board of Appeals, Associate, 2-year term to expire February 2020. Mahesh Patel, Board of Library Trustees, 3-year term to expire February 2021. Linda Binns, Board of Library Trustees, 3-year term to expire February 2021. Eileen Struminski, Board of Library Trustees, it's a 3-year term to expire February 2021. Paul Denisi, Planning Board, 5-year term to expire 2023. Brenda Haskell, Traffic Study Commission, it's a 3-year term to expire February 2021. Gregory Elkowitz, thank you. Traffic Study Commission, 3-year term to expire February 2021. Ben Kuto, the Cultural Commission, 2-year term to expire February 2020. Kristen Mahalt, Cultural Council, 3-year term to expire February 2021. And Diane Keaton, Cultural Council, 3-year term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Counselor Jackson.
Disappeared for a moment.
No, I was just going to say, she had a question about, there was one person that's on 2 different, as being appointed to 2 different boards. It is okay, as long as they're not, there's not a conflict. And so it's somebody that's on the Board of Library Trustees and somebody that's on the Substance Abuse Prevention Council. And so I didn't see an issue with that, so it is okay and something that can happen. I can let her know after, though. Oh, okay. So because, Counselor Jackson, I was just mentioning that because somebody's being appointed to the Board of Library Trustees and then the Substance Abuse Prevention Council, there's no conflict, it is okay.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you for checking
I did
that out.
find that, and I just want to really thank all of these individuals that want to be reappointed, and especially the Youth Commission. It was so cute reading why they want to be involved in the city, so it's great that we have people that want to be involved. So any other comments about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. I entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Duff White, 12 Carnegie Way, to fill an unexpired term of the Board of Police Commissioners, term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions about that? Go ahead.
Great choice for our police department commissioner. She's been active in the police department quite a few years on a volunteer basis anyway, and he's a huge supporter of public safety, and he's going to be an asset for that board. And I consider him a personal friend above all, so.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Lee Ghazali at 104 Oak Hill Avenue to fill an unexpired term on the Park Commission, term to expire February 2023.
Second.
Okay. Any questions about this?
Sure. Did you, that's a new appointment, correct?
It is.
Were we bringing that individual in to meet that person, or?
I didn't have him listed, but I can invite him to come in.
I don't think it's necessary. I just, normally the past practice has been that if someone is newly appointed, that they do come in, and I just wasn't sure if I had missed that. I don't know who Lee is. I'm sure I'll find out.
I think it's a she.
A she, sorry. Steve, there you go.
Yes, Councilor Holmes, I've known Lee Gazel for at least 30 years, and she is a remarkable woman. Lee Gazel was at one time the director of New Hope, and since then she was commuting to Boston for a long time. I would love to see her again because she's a remarkable person. And I'm thrilled that she has expressed an interest to continue to serve the city, of which she has a very long history of remarkable performance. So I think putting her back in the limelight would be a wonderful idea, and that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you.
So, because of the fury in appointments in boards, we were trying to get, or the mayor and I and Diana, Councilor Holmes, sort of worked through what was most pressing to get before the council, and I think the 2 that she did last week and the one that she's holding this week for next appropriate time just sort of fell into the schedule, and Lee certainly could be invited to the meeting, but I don't think it should hold up the appointments to the boards that the mayor has worked so hard to try to fill. Right. So I think that we ought to, these appointments have, believe me, been well vetted. and should be voted by this council and then invited at the next appropriate time to a committee meeting to be reintroduced to, in this case, reintroduced to the community.
Thank you.
And I heartily agree with that. I was beyond impressed last week with the, just beyond, we all know what I'm talking about. I'm beyond impressed last week. It was just and I couldn't be more support, and I would never hold up a vote or anything like that to appoint someone to a volunteer position. But I do, being that this is this particular individual, I'm not sure if I know who they are, and if I happen to bump into them at some point during which happens when we're in the positions that we're in, I would love to be able to say, oh, well, I know exactly who you are. So at her convenience, at your convenience, if you could have the opportunity to bring her in, I would appreciate that.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I entertain a motion to confirm the following reappointments to positions and terms as indicated. Randall Vincent, alternate inspector of wiring, term is 1 year, expires February 2019. Laban O'Brien, assistant inspector of wiring, 1 year term to expire February 2019. Laura Galvin, city solicitor, 1 year term to expire February 2019. Dorothy Brissett, community development director, 2 year term to expire February 2020. Ken Brodesher, thank you so much. The Director of Veteran Services and Veterans Burial Agent, 1 year term to expire February 2020. Scott LaChance, Forest Warden, 1 year term to expire February 2019. Christopher Quinn, Health Officer, 1 year term to expire February 2019. Brian Germain, Inspector of Gas and Piping and Gas, a three-year term to expire February 2021. Kyle Hegney, Lockup Keeper, 1 year term to expire February 2019. Catherine Rigo, Parking Administrator, 1 year term to expire February 2019. And Owen Bebo, Personnel Director, 3 year term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Thank you. All these individuals have, they're being reappointed and have done a lot for the city. Any comments about any of them? Or?
Councilor Holmes, I'm going to ask that when you bring this motion out in front of the full council, that you segregate Laura Galvin, city solicitor, as a separate vote from this list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments about any of these individuals? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Can motion pass? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
May I, through you to Mr. Reason and stuff?
I intend to vote against.
Hold on, sorry.
Wait a minute, point
we
of order.
can't talk.
You voted it.
Okay.
It's already been voted. You can,
You'll hear it next week.
you'll hear about it next week.
Okay, thank you.
That's good. Okay. I entertain, this is just the last motion, I entertain a motion to confirm the reappointments to the positions for terms as indicated. Terrence McCrossan, Constable, 1 year, February 2019. Tony Veros, Constable, 1 year term to expire February 2019. Elaine Clark, Council on Aging, 4 year term to expire February 2022. Kurt Wheaton, Council on Aging, 4 year term to expire February 2022. John Lepper, Council on Aging, 4 year term to expire February 2020. Martha Conti, Trust Fund Commissioners, 3 year term to expire February 2021. Phil Audette, Veterans Graves Officer, 1 year term to expire February 2019. David Wood, Licensing Board, 6 year term to expire February 2024. Christopher Strohs, Solid Waste Advisory Committee, 3 year term to expire February 2021. Scott Jones, Solid Waste Advisory Committee, 3 year term to expire February 2021. George Spatcher, Elections Commission's 4 year term to expire February 2022. Milton Knox, Board of Fire Commissioners, is 3 year term to expire February 2021. Lynn Mendez. Thank you. Board of Recreations and Commissioners, 3 year term to expire February 2021. And Leo Johnson, Board of Recreation Commissioners, 3 year term to expire February 2021. Thank you. Any comments at all about these reappointments? Go ahead.
Yes, Councilor Holmes, when that motion comes out to the floor, I'm going to request that you pull out and segregate Martha Conti Trust Fund,
Commissioner.
as I would like to vote on the remainder of the ballot, and I cannot vote for her.
Okay.
Me neither.
You better.
Just kidding.
Smart
Not
girl.
that it's-
Okay. Sorry, President Cooper.
So I think for Mr. Lepper, you said February 2020, it's February 2022, just to,
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. So there will be a few others that are coming out in the upcoming weeks, and that's for the Council on Human Rights and the Cultural Council. And I just want to encourage everybody to please vote next Tuesday. It's very important to the city. And that concludes my comments for my committee meeting, and I will call for adjournment at 8:39.
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion's adjourned.
It's up by 9 minutes.
Cancel? Oh, you're sure? Everybody's getting out.
who's second?
6:30. Oh, when? Tonight?
The budget meeting's canceled, call for meetings the next free time.
Why was that guy here with the camera? That was like freaking real.
He was